welcome to Strategy Simplified. On today's mini episode, we're going to do a primer on the case presentation interview. What is it? How can you succeed? And how can you prepare? So let's dive in. First off, what is a case presentation interview? Well, case interviews overall come in a lot of different forms. The presentation interview is going to be one of those formats. You're not likely to see this in your first round of interviews, but in perhaps one of your second or final round interviews, you would get, you would receive a packet of information and be told to come into the interview with defined recommendations to present your findings and analysis to the interviewer or interviewers. So whether or not it's termed a presentation interview or not, you can know that you are being put up against a presentation interview when you receive information ahead of time before your interview starts, and you're given time to actually review and analyze this information and data. You could get anywhere from 30 minutes to a couple of days to be able to go through this process, reviewing data and information, analyzing it qualitatively and quantitatively, and then being expected to come into the room, to come into the interview with a defined point of view. You're expected to come in and have a prepared presentation to share, usually in PowerPoint, although it also could be hand drawing slides. If you're given a short period of time, there are some firms who want you to just hand draw your slides. But if you're given more than an hour or two, often you're asked and requested to actually utilize PowerPoint and bring in prepared slides to this discussion. Now, by asking you to do these things, the interviewers get to test a number of different skills. And it's a lot of the same skills that we're looking for in the broader standard case interview as well. Can you structure your information? Can you stay organized? Can you have clarity of thought? Can you move through your process in a logical, rational, stepwise fashion? That still maintains true. Problem solving. Can you pull out the insights that matter? Can you actually turn data into insights? Can you turn those insights into recommendations? That all stays true. And then communication. Can you clearly lead others through your thought process? Can you communicate in a way, in a pacing and in a tone that we see in this simulation of the case interview? We see how you would lead others through your findings, through your thought process, whether that's an internal team context or being an external trusted client counselor and advisor. All of these things maintain applicability from the standard case interview to the presentation interview. So structure, problem solving, communication are still the key evaluation criteria here. It's just going to look and feel different. You are likely to be given more information than you should use. and this mimics the real world project setting as well. To be a good consultant, you have to use a focused, hypothesis-driven approach, and you're not going to be able to speak to all the data. You're not even going to be able to speak to all of the insights that you had as you reviewed the data and you did your qualitative and quantitative analysis. You have to be focused and selective to tell a specific narrative story. So as a consultant, you have to be able to analyze information quickly. You've got to be able to present those specific focused actionable recommendations to your clients or even to your team. The case presentation interview is going to test your ability to be able to do that, to identify good data from bad data, to be able to extract insights, turn them into actionable recommendations, and present them in a persuasive way. They also get to see how well you do in communicating that story through the avenue of PowerPoint, whether it's in the application or hand-drawn slides. There's an extra little element here in that you could be given a presentation interview as a solo interview, as a one-on-one interview, or it could be in a group interview setting as well with other prospective candidates. You would be put in the same room and on the same task with other people interviewing for the same job. In that sense, it's really going to test your teamwork ability as well. Your future firm wants a collaborative team member, someone who can help drive the project forward and drive the thinking forward while not trying to be in charge and in control of everything the entire time. Not everyone can be quarterback at all moments in time. That's my number one piece of advice for any group interview setting. So when we think about what it takes to succeed in a presentation interview and how you move through that time that you have to be able to put this together, the first thing that I want you to do is to identify what is the key question here. What's the key question? What's the key challenge that your client is up against? What's the key question that you are tasked with answering in this presentation interview? This is the same thought process that we go through in the opening sequence in a standard case interview. But now it's that much more important because you have to develop and deliver a focused presentation interview. That presentation that you're creating needs to answer the specific case objective question. It may be clearly laid out for you, or you may have to do some digging through the information that you receive or even ask some follow-up questions. Sometimes there's the opportunity to do that before you go in and present your presentation interview. What is the case objective? What is the key question that your client has? Why have they hired you? What are you trying to answer for them? With the knowledge of that question, you can start to review the information and craft your answer, craft your recommendation. The presentation that you put together needs to be told in a pyramid principle top-down fashion. This is what separates the best consultants from the mediocre consultants. This is what helps separate good consulting job skills from the average corporate manager. To be able to use data to tell a data-driven story, not a data-deep story, to tell a top-down story, not a bottoms-up story, utilizing the pyramid principle. Your objective here is to gain buy-in and motivate action amongst your stakeholders. You are not trying to utilize every data point available to prove with extensive support and 100% inclusion why your answer is correct or why your answer is the right one, quote unquote. You have to filter and curate and prioritize. You have to identify which pieces of data are most important. What insights can you derive by finding themes and patterns and looking across the data and information that you have received? Which of those things stand out and make the strongest, most compelling points to be able to back up your overall recommendation? And as you review the information, you should put a stake in the ground and you should have a draft hypothesis recommendation that you go through the data and test. As a consultant, we can't review all the data and all the information. We have to put a stake in the ground. We have to be assertive. We have to use a hypothesis-driven approach to go test our recommendation, to go analyze the information and go look for information in a specific focused direction. If that hypothesis is proven true, great. Usually we're not exactly right the first time, but we can't boil the ocean and we can't go find all the things and present on all the things. We have to use our base of knowledge, our foundation of knowledge personally and professionally. We have to use our intuition. We have to use our knowledge and understanding of the client and their objective, the key question, to be able to go march in a specific direction, utilize a hypothesis-driven approach, go find the data to prove or disprove our hypothesis, and then update our answer along the way as we go through our process of reviewing and analyzing the information available to us.
We'll be right back after this quick message. Do you have an upcoming presentation or group case interview? We can help you prepare. Our team of MBB coaches has extensive experience preparing people for these types of interviews. Reach out today to see how we can help. The link is in the show notes.
The presentation that you're creating and that you're going to deliver to this interviewer or interviewers, you could be presenting to a panel. It needs to be top down. It needs to be recommendation first, bottom line up front. You need to start your presentation with a clear delivery of your final overall recommendation. It needs to be delivered clearly. It needs to be delivered persuasively, confidently. The rest of your presentation should be structured in a way in which you selectively utilize and choose data to back up and prove that recommendation. This is the pyramid principle approach. Telling the story in a top-down fashion, utilizing a curated set of arguments to be able to back up your main overall recommendation, your main overall assertion. You should absolutely not try to include all of the data or information available to you in your presentation. You should only source the data and the insights that you need to be able to prove out and back up your overall recommendation. You should not hide your recommendation until the final slide. You should be clear and upfront with what that is. And you should structure your presentation in a way in which you utilize the information available to you to make that recommendation. There's not going to be one size fits all for this. And this is where case practice really meets the real world. It's going to be a customized structure to your presentation based on the information available to you, based on the overall recommendation that you're trying to speak to. How do you take that overall recommendation and break it down into digestible bite-sized pieces, clearly proven out utilizing data that's qualitative or quantitative data? How do you create a set of slides to be able to prove out and back up that recommendation? For each individual slide that you create, your interviewers are going to be looking at whether or not you know and utilized slide best practices, including things like having your key insight written in a full sentence slide headline, choosing and utilizing the right data visualization for the content that you're putting on that slide, properly directing your audience's eyes to the key points and the key data that matters on the slide by using things like call-out boxes, arrows, highlights, and other emphasis points, bold, underline, etc. Being able to have a narrative arc and tell a story across multiple slides, that's horizontal logic. I should be able to read across your slide titles and they should tell me a story. And then we've got to see vertical logic employed as well, that what's on the body, the content of your slide is proven out and backed up. It proves out and backs up, rather, the title of the slide. And what the title of the slide is trying to convey, that one main key point or insight, well, that's proven out by what's on the slide itself. It's got to work both ways. But bottom line up front, top-down story, curated, sourced information, not including all the points, not trying to make all the make all the charts. But this is a focused story. It's one in which you're being clear about your overall recommendation and that you're only sourcing the data information that you need to be able to prove those points. Firms like ZS Associates, Deloitte, and EY-Parthenon, these are just some of the firms in which you may very well experience a presentation interview. Certainly, you would get a little bit of head start and notice about this, because part of the whole deal here is you get information and you get some time to be able to work with it ahead of time. I also know of instances where you may be in a super day of interviewing, and in your break, you may be given information to be able to process and work through in this way before your next interview. When you're in that moment, whether you have 30 minutes or 3 days, you're not going to be able to utilize external assistance here. but you can get a head start and practice these types of presentation style cases ahead of time. As you know, we've got a set of ex-McKinsey, Bain, and BCG consultants and interviewers on staff as coaches who only coach with us here at Management Consulted. You could set up meetings with our coaches to be able to work through presentation style cases, to be able to practice pulling together these insights, or over the course of multiple sessions, be given a task like this and then actually have to present your findings back to the coach, getting some feedback on not only the way that you pull together and craft the story, but on these delivery components as well. Do you have that executive presence? Are you carrying yourself with confidence and gravitas as you go through presenting your key points in this top-down pyramid principle fashion? We'd be happy to work with you in that way. Of course, you can find a link in the show notes or read more about our offerings at managementconsulted.com. We wish you the best of luck if you are tasked with one of these presentation interviews.
Case Strategy Simplified. Before we end this episode, I'm going to read one review that we've received on Apple Podcasts. Whoever wrote it will win a free course from Management Consulted. Today's review comes from L. Ray. This information was so interesting and valuable. It helped me to look beyond my professional circumstances due to the COVID pandemic to incorporate practical ways to move forward to success. I also appreciate the humor and candor. El Ray, we really appreciate the review. Thanks for taking the time. You just won yourself a free course. We'll be in touch shortly to make sure you get that. So don't forget to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts for a chance to win. After you do, send us a quick email to let us know. Our email is podcast@managementconsulted.com. In addition, if you have any questions about the consulting industry, hit us up. We love answering your questions.